Hail Saul, my tribe, and welcome to the Modern Barbarian podcast. You may have noticed that there has been a considerable hiatus between my last episode and this one. What happened, you may wonder. To be honest, I fell into the trap of habitual drift that we discussed in episode 14. I went from weekly episodes to every 2 weeks, and then life got in the way, meaning I just stopped making the podcast a priority. I let other things become more important to me, and before you know it, I had just stopped doing it altogether. Then the other day I came across some of my old show notes of episodes that I hadn't made yet, and I realized that there aren't many of any people out there sharing the message that I'm sharing. So I decided to take a look at the old podcast, and would you believe it, even 2 years later, hundreds of people are still listening to the episodes that I made. That means people out there not only enjoy my content, but they think that what I have to say is important and can affect positive change in their life. So I decided to jump back into it. I enjoyed doing it, people enjoy hearing it, and maybe, just maybe, the tribe can make the world a better place. So for today's episode, what will we be talking about? Battling the Nega Barbarian. No, what the hell is a Nega Barbarian? It's a catchy name for a theory known as kill your clone theory, one I made up for you guys. Not the theory, the name. It goes like this. If the bad guys got a hold of your DNA and could make an exact copy of the you that you were yesterday and sent it to kill you today, could you win that fight? Basically, it's there to give you a metric to drive continuous improvement. This gives you a way to measure your performance, especially if you don't have your tribe established yet, or if you have something you want to learn that nobody else in your tribe is interested in, or if your schedule doesn't allow you to do certain particular things with your tribe. This gives you some way to self-motivate, self-compete. You can create an imaginary nemesis, a version of yourself that is relentless, tireless, but always one day behind you. You then pit yourself against this Nega Barbarian every day. What are you doing today to make sure you could kick their ass? Are you eating right? Are you exercising? Are you training? Nega Barbarian is. Are you learning new skills and getting prepared for adverse events? Nega Barbarian is. That guy never stops. So, to talk about this in depth, right? This theory is here to get you to honestly evaluate yourself, honestly evaluate your own performance, and then drive yourself to be a little bit better every day. You look at your own goals, your own wants, desires, and you quantify those in a meaningful way, whether there's all kinds of ways to do it. We'll get into it in the next section where we talk about how to use this, but you gotta quantify this so that you can compete against yourself. And if you make these small steps of continuous improvement every day, you get a little bit farther on something and a little bit farther on something. And before you know it, all these little steps have added up to something amazing. You've gone so much farther than you ever thought you would ever be able to go. And it's been relatively, I don't want to say the term easy, but it's not like you sat out and knocked 2 minutes off your run time in a week, right? Let's just use that as an example. You're trying to track how fast you can run a mile. It's not like you're going to knock 2 minutes off that in a week. But if you do a little bit every day, and the next time you check, and you look back and it's been a couple weeks and 2 minutes have gone off, it's boom. It comes from that small incremental step every time you get there. So, the Nega Barbarian, right? It's just a way to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself doing things that matter, and to give yourself something to compete with to want to strive to be better. Now we understand what this theory is. Let's talk about how you apply it. So, in order to beat the Nega Barbarian, you must know what he is capable of. That means you must not only measure, but you must record your findings. So, in order to do this, you have to honestly test yourself. Don't set it up to where you're testing yourself and you're half-assing it so that you're easy to beat the next time. Don't set it up so that you're doing this on a day when you're not at your best, right? You want to be at your absolute best when you take the time to create these scores for this Nega Barbarian, this competitor that you're going to create for yourself. You need to make sure that you're rested up right, you're hydrated, you've eaten right, everything that you need to do to give your absolute best performance that day is what you need to do. Then you go in and you start doing the things that you're trying to measure to create this false nemesis, this fake bad guy for you to compete against, right? And then you have to record all this. Some people like a logbook, and I kept one for years, but I found that a big whiteboard works a little bit better for me. I hang it on the wall, and I can see these scores actively as I'm doing the stuff that I'm doing. Instead of having to go look through a book and see what I'm competing against, it's like a big sign right there on the wall. The Nega Barbarian can do this quickly. He can lift this much weight. He can draw a pistol this fast, right? All these skills that I want to work on, all these things that I want to compete with myself against every day are all right there on the big whiteboard for me to look at. So now that, I've got this big whiteboard, right? And I've got all these things written down on it as to what I can do or what I could do yesterday, so I know what I'm competing against. What kind of things am I going to put on it, right? I keep track of a few things in my performance, and I use 2 columns on this board, right? The left-hand side is the Nega Barbarian's performance. The right-hand side is what I was capable of doing that day. And at the end of whatever it is, at the end of the day, right, I tally those together and I kind of compare. Did I move forward? Did I move backwards? Where have I made progress? Where have I slipped? And that lets me know if my training regime and studies and all that are keeping me moving in the right direction. So what kind of things am I looking at here, right? What do I keep on my personal board? And what are some things that I recommend all modern barbarians keep on their board? Well, a big one is physical fitness. Not only your cardiovascular times, like run times or rowing machines or whatever you use to keep your cardiovascular fitness going. Keep track of how fast you do what. Then your strength. The big 3 are your squats, your deadlifts, and the 2 presses, the bench press and the overhead press. And you need to record the amount of weight that you do on all those and how many reps that you do at that weight so that you know what you're competing against, the strength of your nemesis. And should always be just a little bit ahead of them. Just a little bit. You're not going to make huge jumps in a day. But you can move it 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds, depending on where you're at in your journey, right? Some other things that I keep on my board. Medical skills. How quickly can you apply a tourniquet to yourself? You got to carry one, right? You got it on you. Hit the timer, or have somebody hit it for you, or use one of the voice-activated ones, whatever you want to do, right? All these things work. And see how quickly you can occlude blood flow to an extremity with the tools that you carry from where you carry them. And you got to do this semi-realistically, right? So if you're going to do this on your left arm, let's say, you're pretending that that's the one you got to stop. You can't use that arm. It's been shot, in air quotes there, if you will. So it's dead to you. So practice it that way, time yourself that way, and get prepared to have to use it that way. Some other medical skills you could do are knowledge-based things, like where do you put in a needle for a tension pneumothorax? Just when you get air in the pleural space in between your lungs and it starts collapsing your lungs and you can't breathe. Or how to properly pack a wound in a joint, right? Because we tourniquet extremities, we pack joints, and we seal wounds to the torso. So there's some medical stuff, right? Or your hand-to-hand skills. How quickly you can throw combinations. Or how hard you can hit a bag. Or how long you can do that for at maximum output. Can you do 3-minute rounds? Can you do 5-minute rounds? Can you do 7-minute rounds? Something to record and try to improve upon. Other options include survival skills, or mental toughness skills, or new skills and knowledges that you want to learn. And when you get into those, some of those are more abstract. And we'll talk about ways to keep track of that and how you could know where you're at with those in a way that's going to make sense, but it's not something you can measure per se with a speed or a time or an intensity. And then you have to make a list of all these as to which ones are important to you. Which ones do you want to improve upon? So you go through all the things, you write them down, right? You measure them all out, you put them on your board. And you write down where you're at and where you stand with it. And you may learn something in that process of testing yourself. You may find out that you're not as good at certain things as you thought you were. And you need to spend some more time practicing those things. You may have slipped from where you once were. And then that can adjust your plan. So you find out where you are, what your Nega Barbarian is. And it's a true, honest self-evaluation where you stand. That's hard for a lot of people, to understand where you actually are. And not where your mind thinks you are, but actually test yourself and know where you are. And so you get all this on the board, and you make a plan, right? And so for this one, let's make some examples, right? Because now you know what you're up against. You look up the board, and you know exactly what your enemy can do. So let's make sure we can stay ahead of it, right? So let's make some examples. I'll make an easy one to start, and I'll finish with a little one that's a little bit harder. An easy one is any of the skills. Starting from the same point each time, perform the skill to the best of your ability. Then either time or grade the outcome, or whatever is appropriate. Let's take drawing from concealment as an example. I track 2 things when I do that: the accuracy of the shot that I make, and the speed with which the shot is made. So only shots to the vinyls count, and you have to keep shooting until you get a shot in the vinyls. You got to do this 5 times at all times together to get an overall score. So you got something like, I use a shot timer called a Pocket Pro 2, and it's hit the button, it's got a delay, a little buzzer goes off, right? Beep, and you grab your gun, draw, you put a shot on something. So if you're practicing dry practice in your house, this doesn't work as well because the shot timer goes off of the sound of the gun going off. But I found a Glock, like an exact Glock replica that is a BB gun. And it's CO2 powered, slide runs back and all that stuff. What's important is when that happens, it makes enough noise for this shot timer to pick it up. So I can use a pellet trap or a BB trap or some kind of indoor safe target for these, and set it up, and practice with that at home all the time, instead of only being able to practice this at the range. But anyway, timer goes off, beep, draw, shoot, record the time. Hit the timer again, wait a few seconds, hit beeps, draw, shoot, record the time. All right. If you missed, you got a target over there. I use quarter size IDPA targets. so they look like little torsos, and I draw a vital shaped box on the thing. So you got the T box or the high center mass in the chest there. You got to hit one of those two. If you don't hit one of those two, you have to shoot again, and that makes it take longer. So it's kind of a penalty, right? So you have to make sure that you are running in slow enough that you're accurate, but fast enough that you're, going to be the first one to get a shot off in a fight. That you're actually getting some practice in. And so you track across 5 shots, the average, and you get add all times together. Let's say you're 2 seconds a shot, right? And you got 5 shots, so your average time is 10 seconds for all 5. Well, you're going to try and keep driving that down, right? Keep driving that down. The lower the score, the better, right? Because it means you're going faster. You're learning to get faster. And now you can compete against your old times. What you shot yesterday is what the Nega Barbarian can do today. He's your nemesis. Can you beat him today? Can you go 1/10 of a second faster on your draw time today? Have you practiced enough to get that? Are you more accurate and going to have less misses today? Maybe you have to slow down a little bit in the actual draw time, but you miss less. It brings a quote to mind. It was by Wyatt Earp, the actual Wyatt Earp, not the movie guy that they made up, but the real Wyatt Earp. And he said, "Fast is fine and all, but accuracy is final." So think about what that means. You can't miss fast enough to win a gunfight. You have to put the bullet in the bad guy. Or all the speed and all the flash and all the show, 0.9 second draws or 0.5 second draws, all this crazy shit you see and hear people do. If they miss the fucking target, it doesn't matter. Accuracy's final. So, there's a good example, right, of an easy one. A skill that you can measure. It's going to have a hole in a spot so you can measure the accuracy, and you're going to have a timer so you can measure the time. Ooh, for those of you that don't have the timers like this, they have some cell phone apps that do the same thing. And there's also like a double beep, right? So you can set it up, you hit the timer button, it has a random delay, and then it beeps. And then so many seconds later, it's going to beep again. And it's called a par timer. And you can drop that par timer down in increments, right? So if it can't pick up your shot, say you're doing this with a blue gun at home. So you're going to have to call your shots, were you accurate, and be honest with yourself. It's a little less good than using something that fires an actual projectile, but better than nothing, right? Or you're using an airsoft gun that doesn't make enough noise, or however you're practicing this, right? As long as it fits in your actual carry gear and you're using your actual holster. But you can run up against the par timer, so it will run a delay, then it'll beep. Then it'll wait, let's say 2 seconds, and it'll beep again. And you can see if you can get the gun out, sight alignment, sight picture, shot off, and be comfortable that your shot would have been in the vitals before the second beep. So that's how you would do that if you don't have one of the tools that I'm talking about that makes enough noise to set these shot timers off. Now let's look at a little bit more abstract skills. Let's look at gaining a new knowledge. That's going to be harder to measure. I like to use memory recall for this. So can I recall from memory everything I would need to know about this particular subject to use it in its intended situation? Example for me is medical knowledge. For emergency use, right? Like, oh crap, somebody's hurting and I need to know how to apply necessary first aid to keep this guy from dying until I get him to a hospital, right? So, for this example, let's look at a tension pneumothorax. So when there's a penetration to the chest cavity, letting air in, but not out, and building up pressure inside the chest cavity. This will start to collapse the lungs. The symptoms include chest pain, shortness of breath, rapid breathing, racing heart, tracheal deviation, and finally going into shock. So I try to make sure that I can remember these symptoms and what they look like. You got to be able to identify them in a person if they're laying on the ground. And that's, so you count this out. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 known symptoms for this penetration to the cavity, to the chest cavity, the tension pneumothorax. Can I remember all 6 on a given day? Can I write them down and say, this is what it's called, and this is what it looks like? So let's go over it here, right? Chest pain. Well, if they got shot in the chest, clearly that's going to hurt. But I know to look for some kind of damage to the chest cavity, whether it be the front or the back or the side. Take a look around. How do you do that, right? There's the visuals. You can look with your eyes. Sometimes it's going to be dark, so you can also do a sweep to look in places you can't see well or when you can't see well, and that's where you got your gloves on and you're running your hand over different places and then bringing your hand up to look for blood. So, if it's on the back and you can't roll them over, but you can get enough hand to wipe your hand back there, you come out with blood, you've got a wound back there, or under an armpit or whatever. And you can also feel that slickness on the gloves when it happens, so you can do this in the dark. So it's a way to look for the damage to the chest and to see if they have, chest pain for this one, which would be, they'll be incapacitated most likely, but they may be able to tell you that. Shortness of breath. So, they'll be having a hard time breathing, having a hard time getting enough air. A lot of times they are conscious when this is happening. They tell you their chest hurt. They tell you they're having a hard time breathing. But you can see that too. You'll have shallow breaths. They won't be breathing normal and, not being able to fully fill their lungs up. Rapid breathing is the response to this shallow breath. They'll be taking breaths a lot more quickly, and they'll be taking breaths a lot more shallowly, right? So they're having to breathe a lot faster to keep the air moving in and out. Heart rate, you can take a pulse, measure on the different spots on the wrist or on the carotids on the side of the neck here, and see how fast their pulse is going. If their heart rate's up and you're seeing some of these signs like shallow breathing, increased heart rate, there's a good chance they have this tension pneumothorax. One of the big ones, it's a later stage part of it, but it's easier to see. It's called tracheal deviation. So as one lung is actually collapsed, it will start to push over towards that collapsed lung because it doesn't take up as much space and the other one still is inflated, and will actually pull the trachea offset in the neck. So, if you look down the center of the neckline now, there's a trachea and it runs right down the middle of it. But if they have this, it will start to push that trachea one way or the other, and it'll look off-centered in the neck. That's called tracheal deviation. It's one of the critical signs of this tension pneumothorax. So you can look for that. And then finally, going in shock. There's a lot of things that put people into shock, but no, they'll be cold, they won't talk right, the body's not behaving right, symptoms of shock. So these are the things we've gone over. I get a little sidetracked going over that, but you know what I'm talking about now. But I need to do that from memory, right? Which I guess I kind of just did. But can I do that from memory? Did I remember the name of everything? Do I remember what everything looks like? Do I know how to treat this if it happens? If it does happen, you take a needle between the third and fourth intercostal space, which is the spaces between the ribs starting at the top, and you puncture with the needle up top there so that it lets all the air out. There's also a hemopneumothorax, which is when there's blood in there. It can be the same thing, but either way, same response. You puncture that chest cavity with a needle and you leave that needle in there until all that air has escaped and those lungs start inflating again. They even make a few special tools that are soft so you don't accidentally damage the lung with a needle. They have like a small plastic tube around them. So you push that through with the needle and then pull the needle out and leave the tube to get the air out. You can, if you got to, you can do it with a damn ballpoint pen. Just some way to get a small hole there to let all that air out. You also need to cover up that wound that's letting the air in and seal it so that it stops, trying to create more of it. But anyway, the point is, can you remember this stuff? is your Nega Barbarian could remember a certain amount of it yesterday, and you're going to write that down, right? I got 4 out of the 6 symptoms, and I remembered the treatment, but I remembered it in the wrong spot. I say 4th and 5th intercostal instead of 3rd and 4th, right? Would it kill him? Probably not, but it's better to do it right. So then you study it if you fuck it up. All right, I didn't get it all right, so let's study it until I can remember it. Now I can remember 5 of the 6 on my own. And you got a little bit better, and that's what your new goal is. That's what the Nega Barbarian can do after that. So, some examples, but something important here I want to put out there. I'm not claiming to do every one of these things every day. It's just not feasible. But you can take time to measure it one day and see where you stand, right? And you may forget some things that you want to have on that board. New things may come into your life that you want to put on that board. And before you know it, you got 40 things on this frickin' board that you're competing against yourself with, trying to get better. And you may not be able to practice all 40 of those things every day. That's okay. That's not the point of this. The point is not to set unrealistic expectations of yourself, but to just keep track of where you are and give yourself some motivation to do better. So don't think that you have to do everything on this board every day. It's not realistic. But you can do almost everything on the board, or the top 10 that are on the board, or whatever you set up as your training criteria. Maybe it's the top 10 things on the board. So you got 3 to 5 physical fitness things. Some weight lift that you want to do, a performance on a certain time for a cardio thing you want to do, and then the rest of the board is skills. So you got, your draw time with a pistol, maybe some accuracy with long range. How many, 15 shots in 15 minutes. What kind of scores can you get at long range with your rifle? Or rapid fire with your rifle. You do fighting rifle stuff. Any of that. Then you leave some room for skills too. Do I know my medical? Have I learned some new survival skills? Can I start a fire with just sticks? Whatever it is. But you're not going to do every one of those every day. It's just not feasible. Especially when you start getting into all the cool things that you want to know. But maybe you set it up, you do them all once a week. That's not going to work for your physical fitness stuff. But the other 5 can change around. Mondays you do pistol work. And Tuesdays you do rifle work. And Wednesdays you do survival skills. Or whatever it is. There's also a way to use clone theory for more than just yourself. You can teach your tribe clone theory and help them start improving themselves, but you can also use clone theory for the tribe as a whole. You could create a Nega Barbarian tribe, if you will, and compete your tribe against that tribe. Could your tribe kill yesterday's tribe? What are you doing each day to ensure that your tribe progresses? How are you helping the tribe make progress? Not only are you making yourself better so that the tribe's better, but how are you actually making the tribe as a whole better? Are you doing small unit tactic stuff together? Are you spending time together so that if you guys needed to do certain things like be able to communicate without words, would you guys know how to do that? Have you spent enough time together? Have you ever talked about it? And then, is your tribe growing or stagnant? Are you adding new members to your tribe? Are you finding like-minded people? Which is probably the hardest thing on the planet to do. Holy shit, it is so hard to grow a tribe nowadays. Especially of people that think like us. Are you kidding me? It's nearly impossible to find people that fit in a tribe. But they are out there, and you can find them. And maybe you have to be a little more open-minded than you thought you would be when you first started it. Maybe, you look at it and they are piss poor gardeners, right? They don't know shit about shit when it comes to growing food. But they're a good mechanic and a good fighter. They don't have to be everything to every ability and every skill to have a place in the tribe. They just got to bring something to the table. and they have to fit in with the rest of the tribe. There has to be some click there, right? They have to want to be there for one. That wanting to be part of the tribe is priority number one. Because I've had some. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a note right now because that's a good thing that I think you guys would want to hear. I need to tell the story of the lost tribe member. We had one lost in the last couple of years. Story of lost tribe member. There we go. Note down. Make an episode in the future for you guys. But we lost a tribe member in the last couple of years. And I'll tell that story. But what are you doing to make your tribe better? Could your tribe kill the Nega Barbarian tribe of yesterday? And once you got it, let's combine the two, right? You teach your tribe your clone theory. You do things together that make you better and bring the tribe together. And then you set some personal and tribal goals, right? I want to, for personal, let's say, I want to get back down to under a 1 second draw. I want to be able to accurately put a shot in a bad guy from a timer to 1 second. That way, if I see something going on, I know, boom, 1 second later, I can have rounds in that guy and protect my tribe and bring that threat down. For a tribal goal, this one's going to sound a little strange, but it's something I want to do. There is an axe throwing league in town. And I think that would be a really good tribal activity. I want the tribe to get together and compete in the local axe throwing league because of a couple reasons. One, it's tribe time. We're spending time together, doing things together as a tribe, and growing our relationship as a tribe. And it's fun stuff, not just work stuff, right? But two, that's a skill that could possibly come in handy. To know ranges and distances that you could throw an axe and stick it into something. Let's hope we never need that skill outside of going and playing, right? But if you do, if you need it, and you know how to throw shit, and you know how to throw it well, and make it do what it needs to do, an axe is still a weapon, and throwing it is still a combat skill. And so we are competing with each other against other people in a combat skill. I can't think of a cooler tribal activity to do together than to go compete against others in combat skills. Now, they may not see it as a combat skill. They may see it as a points game, where they throw it like little dainty throws just to make sure they get the right points and all that stuff, right? But you go into it with the right mindset and realize, I'm learning to do this because it's a combat skill, and I throw it like I would need to throw it in combat, and then learn to be accurate with that type of throw. Now I've developed a skill together as a tribe. We got to do something cool together as a tribe. So that's a tribal goal of mine. But you can see how that works, right? Set some personal goals, set some tribal goals, work on them, record them, compete with yourselves and with others. Then hold each other accountable. Tell your tribe members, your tribe mates, your goals. Tell them what you want to do. If you're squatting 350 and you want to get to 405, right? Tell your tribe mates, I want to squat 405 pounds by the end of the year, and have them hold you accountable. Where are you at in this process? Are you making any gains? Are you putting in the work? Then help hold them accountable. Make them tell you their goals, right? Are you make sure they're making gains? Make sure you're there to help them. And then you need to honor the members that reach the goals, right? Have some time of year that you get together, or sometime a week you get together. Have a tribal dinner every week or every month or whatever it is, and talk about who's making their goals. Honor the members of your tribe that are putting in the work. Make them the guest of honor for the feast because they met all the goals, right? Or whatever it is. But some way to honor tribe members that reach goals and set examples in the tribe. And then take the time to encourage those that are failing. Just because they didn't meet their goal doesn't mean they didn't get better. It doesn't mean they're not a critical part of your tribe. It doesn't mean they're not important. They still deserve your love and respect. They still deserve your encouragement and help. Put the time in with them and help them make that goal by the next time. Help them get to where they need to be for the tribe. And a key part here is there's no time for strangers. Spend your time on the people that matter. The only exception to that as if you think you've got somebody that you would like to have in the tribe. And that's not really a stranger. You have to know something about them to even know that you want them in the tribe. So, but spend your time on the people that matter. Stop wasting time on strangers. You know, don't worry about what's going on with people in town. Don't be putting a bunch of time into people you don't know. Put your time into your tribe. Spend the time and the resources that you have with the people that will make the biggest difference for, and that's your tribe. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. We've talked about the Nega Barbarian, the kill your clone theory. Now let's go over a few conclusions, some things I want you to take away from today's episode. First, you need to take stock of your key areas at the end of every day. Use failure as motivation to achieve more tomorrow. Right? So, do something to make yourself better every day. And then take stock of where you are some point every day. I like to do it at the end. I think that's the best because you've had all day to learn and you know where you're at. I take stock at the end. That's when I make the changes to the board. Encourage your tribe mates to do the same. Celebrate their achievements and help them overcome their obstacles. Do what you need to do to help your tribe. For me, I'm the guy that likes to work out the most in my tribe. I spend a lot of time with my gym, built my own down here in the garage, and I let my entire tribe use it. Anybody that wants a tribe, come down here and use this gym whenever they want. So there's no gym fees, no weird people you got to deal with. It's just tribe, right? And I spend the time to help them in the gym. Teach them how to do things right. Help them run their programming. I do all the food prep for my tribe so that I know they're eating right if they want to. You know, stuff like that. Put the time in to your people. Spend your time doing things that matter for your people. Celebrate their achievements and help them overcome their obstacles. That's a key part of that. You have to celebrate the achievements and help them overcome obstacles. Congratulate them when they do things. Make sure that everybody in the tribe knows they've done well and they've helped the tribe. Celebrate that. Honor that. Tribal honor is why people do things. They need that honor. They need to hold a position of respect in the tribe, and they earn that by doing the hard work. Know that their goals may be different than yours, but as long as they are making the tribe better, that's okay. Not everybody wants to deadlift 1,000 pounds, you know. That's not a reasonable expectation for you to have. Hell, it's not really a reasonable expectation for most people to have. World's strongest men, you know, compete their whole life and never get to that. But I'm using it as an example, an over-the-top, exaggerated example. But physical strength is important, but it may not be at the top of everybody in the tribe's thing. Some of them may want cardiovascular. They may decide that they think for their skill, what they want to do to bring to the tribe, they want to be able to run a really long ways or really far. That's a good skill. That's still making the tribe better, right? So understand that not everybody in the tribe is going to be a clone of you, and that they're going to see what they think is important to the tribe, and that's what they're going to bring to the tribe, and that's what they're going to work on, and that's okay. Diversity of skill is important. You have to have people that can do a bunch of different things to survive as long as they can all work together. And finally, never forget that the tribe is life. We do everything for the tribe. Everything that is important comes from the tribe we build. Everything that's worth having is worth having with the tribe. And that's all we got for today, guys. So, we're on a new platform, Spotify for podcasters. So this will be going on Spotify, which means it should still be up on all the major platforms after that. Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. You should be able to find this everywhere. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, take a look back at some of the old ones you may not have listened to. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Share these with your friends and your family, especially if it resonates with you. Share this with your tribe. That's a big one, right? Share this with your tribe. Maybe you don't have the thought process to explain this the way I do. Or maybe you think that they wouldn't take it well hearing it from you. Maybe they'll take it hearing it from me, right? Share this with your tribe. See if they want to help you kill the Nega Barbarian. And that's all for today, folks. Have a good day.